Hey everyone, how's it going? It's that nerd Ryan here, and today we're going to be talking about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Battle Tendency. So, as you guys have known with my Phantom Blood review, that I've been reading and rewatching the show. So JoJo's has become one of my favorite shows since last year. And I finished watching it, and I wanted more, and I knew that Part 9 was around the corner, and they already made Part 7 and 8. So I was like, might as well read it just to get to Part 7 before the show hopefully comes out. So we finished Phantom Blood. I reviewed it about 2 months ago because there's 69 chapters here. And I was like, okay, time to review Battle Tendencies for you guys. So, out of my original watch, Battle Tendency was my least remembered. So, I was really excited to actually go to this just to remember certain things. I remembered the little gist of it, what it was about, that there's no stands yet, it was still Hamon. It was about a younger Joseph. Initially, when I first saw it too, I did not like Joseph up until closer to the end. But the first half of Battle Tendency, I didn't like Joseph originally. But now revisiting it and reading it, I like younger Joseph a lot. I still think I like old Joseph more, but I mean his personality of being kind of goofy and a trickster and a jerk are just great, and I like how it's literally the exact opposite of Jonathan. While I appreciate Jonathan a lot more with Phantom Blood, I do think reading Phantom Blood, I do feel like Joseph is a lot better of a character. We also get Caesar Zeppeli, who also kind of is the opposite of Will Zeppeli. It kind of is weird in that. We also get Lisa, who is the trainer of this duo, and also Joseph's mother, who I thought was kind of a good character too, where she was very callous at the beginning, and then you could tell she started caring, especially during Caesar's death. You could tell that she very much cares about the two of them. We also get some minor good characters. Speedwagon's back. Smokey, who is JoJo's friend that he saves at the beginning. Erina is back as Joseph's grandmother. Who else is on the good side? Oh, God. The one that I actually originally forgot about, Stroheim. Stroheim, who is a 1940s German, if you know what I mean, without getting in trouble on YouTube. But yeah, he actually he's on the side of good, but obviously he's not a good person for who he follows. But he's also kind of turned into a cyborg in this, which is kind of insane. It's bizarre. But yeah, and then we have, for the villain side, the Pillar Men. We have 4 Pillar Men in this. Santana, who is kind of killed off early. There's a theory that I've heard that I kind of agree with, that he might be Diavolo's father. It is kind of a stretch. It could be possible, but I mean, we'll get to that when we get to Golden Wind. But yeah, Santana, who's kind of the introduction to the Pillar Men, is defeated by Stroheim and Joseph. And then we get introduced to the other 3 Pillar Men, which is AC/DC, Wamu, and Cars. Obviously named after the bands AC/DC, Wham, and the Cars. Santana, named after Santana. So we get to see basically Wamu and AC/DC put a timer on Joseph to get better after their first fight, by giving him putting poison rings around his heart and around his throat. So Joseph trains with Caesar to learn how to control his Hamon better with Lisa. And during that, AC/DC kind of shows up, kills one of the trainers, and fights Joseph. Joseph defeats him and gets rid of the ring around his throat. While that happens, he possesses Lisa's maid named Susie Q, who steals the MacGuffin of this, which is the Red Stone of Asia, and sends it off to Cars, and then gets defeated by a Hamon kiss from Joseph, because Arna was possessed, and it destroyed the possession. At this, they get sent to Sweden, I believe it was, where they reunite with Stroheim, who's now a cyborg, and they fight Cars for the first time, barely surviving. At that, Caesar goes after Cars and Wamu. He fights Wamu and then is crushed, thus creating the most iconic scene in Battle Tendencies, where Joseph is mourning over Caesar and he just screams his name, which is probably my favorite part of Battle Tendency. It actually, this time around, made me tear up. The first time it just made me laugh. This time it actually made me tear up, because you do get connected to these characters better during reading. At that, JoJo finally is able to face off against Wamu in basically a Coliseum death race, where Joseph barely wins. We get to see some really cool, basically strategizing that JoJo has in this. And one second. My light just died. That's what I get for recording 2 videos in a row. Anyways, yeah, so Joseph beats Wamu, and then Lisa has to face off against Cars, where she loses because while Wamu fights with honor, Cars fights dirty. We also, I forgot to mention, we bring back the Stone Mask in this. If you put the Red Stone of Asia in the Stone Mask, you become the ultimate life form, where Cars does so, and he's able to conquer the sun and also turn any part of his body into any type of living creature. We see this with him turning his hand into a squirrel, and it eating another squirrel, then coming back, then turning into a butterfly, then turning into a rose, then turning back into his hand. At this, Joseph does his best strategy ever, which we get to see at the beginning of the story, which I skipped over when he fights Straitso from part 1, and that is to run for your life. So JoJo runs away as Cars is chasing him. He then steals Stroheim's plane and tries to distract Cars while he comes up with a plan. Cars ends up shooting feathers at him that turn into piranha, and Joseph ends up crashing the plane into a volcano with Cars, and they fight on there. He also cuts off JoJo's hand at this point, and they end up fighting on this launched rock, where Cars gets launched into space and does not die. He just can't die, but he also cannot function, and is frozen in space. He just decides to stop thinking. And that is the end of Cars. Joseph is presumed dead, where they have his funeral, and he shows up married to Susie Q with a robotic hand, and they all live happily ever after for a while. Lisa remarries. Her actual name, obviously she was Joseph's mother, her actual name was Elizabeth Joestar. She remarries a scriptwriter 10 years later. Erna dies of old age at 81. About 8 years later from that, Speedwagon dies of a heart attack, but he's never married, so basically the Joestar family gets all the benefits of the Speedwagon Foundation, as we'll see. And Joseph and Susie Q move to America, and Smokey becomes the mayor of Georgia, even though he looks like somebody else in the in the anime. And then we skip to 20 years later, or I mean 2 generations later, my bad, where Joseph is going to Japan to see his grandson. You also get another really funny interaction that I remembered from Battle Tendencies, which is he gets knocked over by a man. He looks over and he's like, "Oh, no, it's fine. Wait a minute. Are you Japanese?" And the guy's like, "Yeah." And then he kicks him and he's like, "You know, my daughter moved to Japan with a man, and I never get to see her. And my grandson doesn't even know my own face. And that's why I'll never forgive the Japanese." And that's like my favorite line in Battle Tendency. Which also doesn't make sense once we get to Diamond is Unbreakable, but that's besides the point. But yeah, so that's how the manga that's how the manga ends. The anime does add some stuff. We do get like tiny things skipped. Like there's a scene at the post office where Caesar and Joseph are just like being delinquents. That's cut from the anime that is in the manga. It's a hilarious scene. But yeah, that is cut, like one of the few parts that's cut out. But the anime also does add at the end the monologue where it's showing like what happens to everybody. It actually shows what happens. The manga does like a little blurb, but the anime does like it shows like Erina on her deathbed and like Lisa and everybody moving to America, Speedwagon going to his plane, Stroheim dying at the Battle of Stalingrad, stuff like that. And then it also adds showing Dio's chest, his coffin, at the end to set up Stardust Crusaders, as well as showing Jotaro. So yeah. And then one thing that was cool in the manga at the end that wasn't in the anime for copyright reasons is Joseph is listening to my second favorite band of all time, the Beatles, while flying to Japan. But yeah, so Battle Tendency, I ended up loving it a lot more the second time around. I am going to give it a 9 out of 10. I especially enjoyed the manga, but I'm excited to, I guess 3-4 months from now, talk to you guys about Stardust Crusaders. Thank you for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, and follow me on all my social media down below. It's that Nerd Ryan, signing off.